ladies and gentlemen. Have you ever found yourself looking in the mirror wondering when you lost you? When did your joy become a dim memory? When did your boundaries become a negotiable contract? If that hits home, stay with me because today we're diving deep. Not into blaming, not into finger pointing, but into reclaiming you. This isn't about waiting for someone else to change, it's about changing the way you show up. Toxic relationships aren't just bad romances, they're the friendships that drain you, the family dynamics that suffocate you, or the coworker who keeps pulling you into negativity. We all have them or have had them, and if you're ready to step out of that cycle, I promise you this, what we're about to uncover has the power to transform not just your relationships, but your life. Toxic relationships are like weeds in a garden. They don't just harm the flowers, they steal sunlight and nutrients. You deserve a garden full of beauty, not a battlefield of survival. So today I challenge you, take back your mirror, take back your joy, and most importantly, take back you. You are worth the boundaries. You are worth the healing. And you are worth the love, starting with the love you give yourself. Pain is real, and it carries a weight that can feel unbearable at times. Whether it's the sting of harsh words, the betrayal of trust, or the loneliness of feeling unseen, the hurt from toxic relationships is something that touches every part of who you are. It doesn't just wound your emotions, it tries to break your spirit. And if we're being honest, sometimes it feels easier to stay in the pain than to confront it. We convince ourselves that ignoring it is strength, that pushing through is courage. But denying what hurts doesn't make it go away, it just allows it to take deeper root. So let's take a moment to acknowledge it, not as a sign of weakness, but as an act of power. Because when you face the pain, you take the first step toward freedom. The tears you've cried were real. The sleepless nights where your mind replayed every harsh word, every betrayal, every moment you felt small, they were real. But here's the truth, those moments don't define you. They're chapters in your story, not the whole book. Acknowledging pain isn't about dwelling in it. It's about giving yourself permission to feel so that you can heal. Too many people spend years carrying wounds they never unpacked. They move from one relationship to another, dragging along the same baggage because they never stop to confront what's inside. They tell themselves, I'm fine, when their heart is crying out for release. That's why this step is so critical. You can't resolve what you refuse to recognize. When you acknowledge pain, you give yourself the gift of honesty. You allow yourself to say, this hurt me, this drained me, this broke me, and in that moment of honesty, you begin to take your power back. Pain loses its grip when you shine a light on it. It's like cleaning out a wound. Yes, it stings in the moment, but that sting is what leads to healing. But let me be clear, acknowledging the pain doesn't mean letting it dictate your future. It's not about wallowing, it's about moving forward. It's about refusing to let the hurt have the final say. Because staying in the pain doesn't serve you, it keeps you tied to the very thing you're trying to break free from. That's why you have to make a choice. Will this pain be the place where you stop? Or will it be the place where you start again? This process isn't easy. It requires courage because it means facing what you've been running from. But you are stronger than you think. The fact that you're here, listening, seeking, says that you're ready. Ready to confront what's been holding you back. Ready to let go of the lies that say you're not enough or that you have to settle for less than love, peace, and respect. Pain will try to tell you that you're stuck, that you're too broken, too hurt, too damaged to move forward, but that's not the truth. The truth is that even in the midst of your pain, there is a moment in every journey of growth when we must stop and ask ourselves, what am I allowing? What am I contributing to this situation? And what am I doing to change it? This is not an easy question because it requires looking in the mirror and being honest with the person staring back. It is far easier to focus on what someone else has done wrong, how they have hurt us or how they have failed us, but freedom doesn't come from placing blame, it comes from taking responsibility. Not for the actions of others, but for how we respond, for what we permit, and for how we move forward. Taking responsibility is not about letting someone else off the hook for their behavior. It doesn't mean their actions were right or that the pain they caused is invalid. What it does mean is that you reclaim the power to decide what happens next. Because if you wait for someone else to change before you take your life back, you will be waiting forever. Change begins with you not because you are to blame, but because you hold the keys to your freedom. There is strength in saying, I have a part to play here. It doesn't make you weak to acknowledge where you've stayed silent when you should have spoken up. It doesn't make you less valuable to recognize where you've compromised your standards, ignored red flags, or allowed unhealthy patterns to persist. In fact, it takes incredible courage to admit those things. But that courage is what sets you free. When you take responsibility, you take control of your story. You move from being a passive character in someone else's narrative to the author of your own life. We often think of responsibility as a heavy burden, but it's not. Responsibility is empowering. It's the realization that you don't have to wait for circumstances to align perfectly or for people to suddenly treat you better. You have the ability to make decisions right now that honor your worth, protect your peace, and align with the life you want to live. That power is already in your hands. You just have to choose to use it. This kind of responsibility requires a shift in perspective. Instead of asking, why are they doing this to me? Ask, what am I going to do about it? Instead of saying, they made me feel this way, say, how can I choose to respond differently? That shift doesn't ignore the pain or dismiss the wrongdoing. It simply redirects the focus to where your power lies. It also requires you to take an inventory of your life. What boundaries need to be set? What conversations need to be had? What relationships need to be redefined or, in some cases, released? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. Because when you take radical responsibility, you stop waiting for the situation to change, and you become the change. This is a daily practice. There will be moments when it feels easier to fall back into old habits, to point fingers, or to give up altogether. But every time you choose responsibility over resentment, you take another step toward freedom. You reclaim your voice. You reclaim your peace. And most of all, you reclaim the life that was always meant for you. When life teaches you painful lessons through toxic relationships, it's easy to decide that the safest path forward is to build walls around your heart. Walls that say, I will never let anyone hurt me again, or no one will get close enough to betray me. And while that might seem like protection, it's really isolation. Those walls might keep pain out, but they also keep love, connection, and growth from getting in. That's why boundaries matter so much more than walls. Boundaries don't isolate you, they guide others in how to treat you while protecting the sacred space of your peace. A boundary is a declaration of self-respect. It's saying, this is what I deserve, and this is what I will not accept. Boundaries are not just about telling people what they can't do, they're about affirming your own value. They're a reminder to yourself that you are worthy of relationships that honor you, not harm you. And let me tell you, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential. It's not about keeping people out. It's about protecting what matters most, your energy, your sanity, and your joy. Setting boundaries takes courage because it often requires you to have hard conversations, not just with others, but with yourself. You have to identify where you've been letting things slide, where you've been saying yes when you meant no, and where you've been compromising your values to keep the peace. Those moments of compromise might seem small, but over time, they erode your sense of self-worth. And that's the danger of living without boundaries before you know it. You've allowed others to dictate the terms of your life, and you feel like a stranger in your own skin. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges to healthier relationships. They don't shut people out, they invite the right people in while keeping toxicity at a safe distance. When you set boundaries, you're giving others a chance to rise to the level of respect and love you deserve. Some people will accept that challenge and others will walk away. And that's okay. Boundaries don't just reveal your strength, they reveal who's willing to meet you in that strength. It's important to understand that boundaries are not just words, they're actions. You can't just say, I don't tolerate disrespect, and then allow someone to keep crossing that line. Boundaries mean following through, even when it's uncomfortable. They mean teaching people that you are serious about what you say, even when it feels easier to let things go. And let me tell you, when you enforce boundaries, it will test some relationships. But those tests are necessary because the people who truly love and respect you will honor your boundaries. The beauty of boundaries is that they give you freedom. Freedom to be yourself. Freedom to love without losing yourself. Freedom to walk away from what doesn't serve you. They create a space where you can thrive, grow, and live fully. When you set boundaries, you're not just protecting your peace, you're creating a life where peace is the foundation. You're saying yes to the life you deserve and no to anything less. And that, my friend, is where true healing begins. When dealing with toxic relationships, it's easy to focus all your energy on the individual causing the pain. Their words, their actions, their choices, it can feel like the problem begins and ends with them. But the truth is often deeper. Toxicity isn't always about one person, it's about the patterns that keep repeating it in your life. Those patterns don't just show up once they appear again and again, wearing different faces and disguising themselves in different situations. If you only focus on the person and not the pattern, you'll find yourself back in the same place, wondering why things never seem to change. Recognizing patterns requires taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture. Ask yourself, what keeps showing up in my relationships? It might be a lack of respect, a cycle of manipulation, or a constant need to prove your worth. Maybe you find yourself in situations where your boundaries are ignored, or perhaps you're always the one giving while receiving little in return. These patterns aren't just coincidences, they are clues. They reveal what needs to be addressed, healed, and transformed within you and your life. Breaking free from toxic relationships means going beyond pointing fingers. It means asking hard questions. Why did I stay in this situation so long? What drew me to this person in the first place? What part of me believed I had to tolerate this behavior? These are not questions of blame, they are questions of empowerment. They shift the focus from what someone else did to what you can do differently moving forward. Patterns persist when they go unnoticed. But once you see them, you have the power to disrupt them. It's not easy to admit that we play a role in these patterns, but it's necessary. You may realize that your own insecurities, fears, or unmet needs have influenced the types of relationships you've allowed into your life. Perhaps you've been trying to fix people hoping that your love could heal their brokenness. Or maybe you've been seeking validation from others, believing that their approval would fill the emptiness inside. These realizations can be uncomfortable, but they are also liberating. They remind you that you have the power to choose differently. When you identify patterns, you begin to understand that change doesn't come from cutting off one toxic relationship and jumping into another. It comes from addressing the root cause of why those relationships felt familiar, why you stayed, and why you kept hoping things would be different. Change happens when you decide to break the cycle, even if it means stepping into the unknown. This journey of self-discovery isn't about judging yourself, it's about loving yourself enough to stop the cycle. It's about refusing to repeat the same mistakes and choosing to create a new story for your life. When you focus on the pattern, you stop chasing short-term fixes and start building lasting solutions. You become intentional about who you allow into your life and what you're willing to accept. You create a space for healthy, life-giving relationships to flourish because you've done the work to break free from the old cycles. This is the moment when things begin to shift. When you see the patterns, you can change them. When you change the patterns, you change your life. And when your life changes, the right people, the right energy, and the right love have room to enter. Patterns don't have to define you. They can teach you, guide you, and prepare you for something far greater than the pain you've known. There is a pull inside all of us toward what feels familiar, even when that familiarity is causing us harm. It's a strange paradox of human nature. Our hearts crave peace, joy, and love, yet we often return to what we know, even if it's chaos, pain, and struggle. Toxic relationships have a way of creating habits. We get used to the arguments, the tension, the cycles of disappointment, and false hope. It becomes a rhythm, a pattern we settle into, not because it's good for us, but because it's what we've come to expect. But there comes a moment when you have to choose healing over habit, when you have to decide that the comfort of familiarity is not worth the cost of your peace. Healing is not always the easier choice, but it is the better one. Habits let you stay in the same place. They allow you to move through life on autopilot, repeating the same actions, reacting the same way, and expecting the same results. Healing, on the other hand, requires effort. It demands that you stop, reflect, and challenge the way things have been. Healing asks you to step outside of what's comfortable and face the truth of what's been hurting you. That's why so many people avoid it. It's hard work. It requires you to confront your fears, your pain, and sometimes even the parts of yourself that have been complicit in the patterns you want to break. Choosing healing means making a conscious decision to walk away from what no longer serves you. It means saying no to the people, situations, and behaviors that keep you stuck, even when saying no feels like the hardest thing in the world. It's about learning to sit with the discomfort of letting go and trusting that something better is waiting on the other side. Healing is not about ignoring the pain or pretending it didn't happen. It's about acknowledging the pain, learning from it, and using it as fuel to create a healthier and more fulfilling life. One of the most challenging parts of healing is that it often means breaking ties with the people or situations that you've grown attached to. There may be moments when you feel tempted to return to what's familiar, to go back to the habits that feel safe but aren't healthy. That's when you have to remind yourself why you started this journey in the first place. Healing is a choice you make every day. It's in the decision to speak up instead of staying silent. It's in the choice to set boundaries instead of allowing others to take advantage of you. It's in the courage to prioritize your own well-being, even if it means disappointing others. The beauty of choosing healing is that it opens the door to freedom. It frees you from the chains of the past, from the weight of toxic relationships, and from the habits that have kept you bound. It allows you to rediscover who you are outside of the hurt, the pain, and the cycles you've endured. Healing isn't just about fixing what's broken, it's about becoming whole. It's about reclaiming your power, your peace, and your purpose. And when you choose healing over habit, you don't just change your relationships, you change your entire life. When you've been hurt by toxic relationships, there's a natural desire to see the other person feel the same pain they caused you. It's human to want justice, to wish for some sign that they understand the weight of their actions. But revenge is a distraction. It takes your energy and attention and ties them to the very thing you're trying to heal from. It feels like power in the moment, but it's just another chain keeping you bound to the past. Growth, on the other hand, is freedom. Growth doesn't look back to see who's watching. It looks forward to the future you're creating. When you focus on growth, you take the pain, the lessons, and even the scars, and you use them to build something new. Growth doesn't require the other person to apologize or change. It only requires you to make a decision. A decision that says, this will not define me. This will not break me. This will not stop me. Toxic relationships may have tried to dim your light, but growth is about reigniting it. It's about choosing to thrive in spite of what happened, to use every setback as a stepping stone toward a better version of yourself. Revenge keeps you looking at the past, replaying the hurt, and staying in a cycle of bitterness. Growth shifts your focus to the possibilities ahead. It's about asking, what can I learn from this? How can this experience make me stronger, wiser, and more compassionate? Growth isn't about denying the pain. It's about refusing to let that pain have the final say. It's choosing to invest in your healing, your joy, and your future instead of wasting energy on things you can't control. When you focus on growth, you realize that the best way to get back at someone isn't through retaliation, it's by living well. It's by finding peace, building happiness, and stepping into the fullness of who you are. That's a kind of victory that doesn't depend on anyone else. It's a victory that's entirely your own. Growth says, you didn't break me. You may have caused me pain, but you didn't take away my power. Growth also brings clarity. When you're focused on revenge, you can't see the lessons that are meant to help you move forward. You miss the chance to understand yourself more deeply, to recognize patterns, and to make choices that align with the life you truly want. Growth gives you the ability to look at the situation and say, I've learned what I needed to learn here, and I'm ready to leave it behind. It's about carrying the wisdom, not the wounds, into your next chapter. Choosing growth doesn't mean you'll never feel anger or frustration about what happened. Those emotions are part of the process, but growth reminds you that you don't have to stay in that place. It calls you higher, inviting you to focus on what you can create, who you can become, and the life you can build. It's not about winning against someone else, it's about winning within yourself. When you focus on growth, you stop looking for external validation and start finding your worth, your strength, and your healing from within. That's the kind of power no one can take away from you.